Shri Gurucharitra, Chapter 35. Shri Gurudev Datta Parabrahmane Namaha. The story of Kach Devyani, the glory of Somvar Vrat. After listening to the significance of Rudradhyaya, that chaste woman, Datta's wife, saluted Shri Guruji and requested him, "Hey the Master, grace me to be incessantly engrossed in chanting your name. Devotion to Guru should stabilize in my mind. For that, kindly preach me a verse, spell." She prayed thus. After listening to her prayer, Sri Gurunath smiled and said thus, "O the chaste woman, let it be known to you that for a woman the most effective means of achieving religious merit is her chastity and devotion towards her husband. That itself is a powerful and divine spell for her. According to the scriptures, if a woman is given by way of initiation a spell, its efficacy would become enfeebled. Later, that mantra would become ineffective. Besides, the aspirant would have to face several hardships. In the past, even sage Shukracharya had problems and impediments as he taught the spell to a woman, his daughter. Then that chaste woman questioned Sri Guruji thus, "O the Master, kindly enlighten me as to how the efficacy of a mantra that is advised to a woman gets ineffective. What problems did crop up when sage Shukracharya initiated a mantra to a woman? Please tell me elaborately about all these issues." Then Sri Guruji continued with the narration and said thus, "Hey the virtuous women, in the past there used to be frequent wars between gods and demons. When the army of gods annihilated the demons, their preceptor Shukracharya used to make them alive by reciting Sanjivani verse. Due to his helping hand, though the army of demons was defeated several times in the war, they were not eliminated and were coming back alive for fight. Disappointed by this, the king of gods, Lord Indra, met Shri Shiva Shankar and told him his agony. Shiva, after hearing this incident, got agitated very much and sent his vehicle Nandi to arrest the sage and bring him to his place. Accordingly, Nandi brought sage Shukra to Lord Shiva immediately, and Lord Shiva devoured him in a single bite. In the absence of Shukracharya, the demons were rendered directionless. After some time, when Lord Shiva was in a state of oblivion, Shukracharya maneuvered to come out of his body through his urinary tract. As he did earlier, he managed to keep the demons who were dead in the battlefield alive by reciting the sacred Sanjivani verse. This act of saving demons by Shukracharya irritated Lord Indra. He became quite anxious and came to his preceptor Brihaspati and narrated everything about what was happening. He was in hapless condition and begged for suitable remedial action. Then the preceptor Brihaspati started applying his mind to devise a stratagem through which the efficacy of Sanjivani mantra could be enfeebled. To implement his strategy, he finally came to a conclusion that the Sanjivani mantra should be heard by at least 3 persons, that is, should fall on 6 ears. To implement his strategy, he thought of his clever and tactful son to be the fittest person to be designated for the purpose. With that in mind, he called his son and instructed him thus, "Dear son Kach, just now you have to leave for the hermitage of sage Shukracharya for accomplishment of a secret mission. There, at his hermitage, you should be engaged in the service of Guru under the pretext of a sincere disciple. You must serve your Guru in a dedicated and sincere manner, at times condemning our people, and somehow manage to learn the verse Sanjivani in a clever way." Kach consented for the mission, and after seeking the blessings and permission from all elderly people, left on the pretext of learning to the hermitage of Shukracharya. Kach prostrated before sage Shukracharya in a very submissive manner. At the behest of Shukracharya, the young handsome boy Kach got himself introduced to him. Kach expressed his intention of learning scriptures under the able guidance of Shukracharya and to be in his service. Kach prayed before Shukracharya to accommodate him as his disciple in the hermitage and give an opportunity to be a scholar in Vedas and scriptures under his able guidance. Meanwhile, the dear daughter of Shukracharya, Devyani, happened to come there. The young handsome Kach looked to her as Manmath. She was fascinated by his looks, grace, elegance, and youth. At the first sight itself, she decided in her mind to have wedlock with him. She insisted on her father to accept Kach as a disciple and admit him in the hermitage. Shukracharya admitted Kach to his Gurukula. Within a short time, the smart Kach turned out to be the chief disciple in the hermitage. Somehow, the Deban disciples suspected the moves, design of disciple Kacha right from the beginning. They had a very strong suspicion that he might have joined them on the mission of God's fraternity and that he was a virtuous guy in the guise of a disciple who had come there to learn Sanjivani mantra to serve the purpose of the army of gods. They were anticipating impending danger from him. One day, seizing an opportunity, they took him to an isolated forest area and annihilated him. That day, Devyani noticed Kacha's absence and became restless. She insisted on her father to call Kach back immediately to the hermitage. Shukracharya came to know everything about his dear disciple Kach through his yogic vision. He learned that Kach had been slain by demons out of rivalry. Instantly, he recited the Sanjivani verse and made Kach alive. However, the matter did not end there. The demons' hatred towards Kach escalated day by day. They were tactfully managed to finish him again, chopped off his body into small pieces, and threw them away in all the directions. Devyani grieved a lot when she noticed the absence of Kach in the hermitage. She insisted on her father that Kach should be brought back to the hermitage and that if he failed to do that, she would commit suicide for the sake of Kach. Shukracharya, through his yogic vision, could see what had happened to Kach. He came to know that Kach had been annihilated by the demons. He again recited the Sanjivani verse for his survival. Instantly, Kach appeared before him. For the third time, again the restless demons annihilated Kach and cut his body into very small pieces and prepared paste out of those pieces. Then they mixed it with alcohol and offered it to Shukracharya as a drink. Shukracharya, who was unaware of the fact, consumed the drink without hesitation. As Kach was not seen in the hermitage, Devyani insisted on her father again to arrange for the safe return of Kach. Shukracharya realized that Kach was nowhere but in his stomach and as such was a little tense. Devyani insisted on her father repeatedly to bring back Kach alive. Helpless Shukracharya, out of his affection, infatuation towards his daughter, initiated the Sanjivani verse to his daughter. Kach, who was in his stomach, as he heard it while pronouncing from outside, the verse fell on 6 ears, that is, on 3 persons. Instantly, Kach became alive and by piercing the stomach of Shukracharya came out. Shukracharya expired instantly. Then his daughter Devyani recited the Sanjivani verse and gave life to her father. This way the verse was repeated 3 times. Since Kach himself heard it thrice, he learnt it by heart. He successfully accomplished his designated mission. By the grace of Guru, Kach became a scholar. He came to say Shukracharya and spoke to him thus: "Hey, my revered preceptor, by your sheer grace, I could complete my studies much earlier under your lotus feet. As the demons are after me, my life is in danger. Here, be kind enough to let me go from this place." Thus praying, he saluted the lotus feet of his preceptor. Devyani was terribly upset when she learned that Kach was preparing to leave the hermitage very shortly. She pressurized Kach to stay in the hermitage by getting married to her. Kach told her that she happened to be the daughter of his preceptor and as such he could not establish marital relationship with her as she was in his sister's position. He said that such a kind of relationship would be against the moral code of ethics and healthy customs prevailing in the society. He refused to marry her since as of now they were from the same family of Guru. Annoyed Devyani cursed Kach that the lesson he had learnt in the matter of Sanjeevani verse should be forgotten by him at times of need. Then Kach in return also cursed her that her marriage should take place with a bridegroom Brahmin race and also the efficacy of Sanjeevani verse should not get fructified in times of need. Since then the study of Sanjeevani verse got decayed. From that moment onwards, the demons who were annihilated in the war by the army of gods did not regain their lost lives. This way, the demons were destroyed due to achievements made by Kach. While speaking to Savitri, Sri Guruji advised thus: Hey, the virtuous woman, I have given you the reason with an example as to why the sacred verse mantra must not be taught to a woman. For a woman, devotion to her husband should be of prime concern, and there is no other religion beyond that. He should Hey, the virtuous woman, I have given you the reason with an example as to why the sacred verse mantra must not be taught to a woman. For a woman, devotion to her husband should be of prime concern, and there is no other religion beyond that. She should never pursue any religious practice without the instructions, knowledge of her husband or guru. Then she expressed her desire of observing an ideal and most efficacious religious vow and prayed before Sri Guruji to guide her in the matter of observing the vow. So praying, she repeatedly saluted him. In response to her prayer, Sri Guruji told her, Hey, the chaste woman, to have a long, happy wedded life and to enable your husband to have a contented and smooth life journey, I am going to tell you the most meritorious and the best amongst all the vows, which is dedicated to Lord Shankar. It is none other than Somvar Vrat. As that vow is dedicated to Lord Shankar, the observer should remain on fasting every Monday, the day which the Lord is fond of, and during the Pradosh period, worship the Lord through verses and rituals prescribed for that vow on that day. You should eat the food after the vrata only. This is the most easiest and efficacious vow which can be observed by one and all. To speak about a few who have observed this vow are the priests, bachelors, virtuous women, young girls, widows, little girls, and the like. To highlight the significance of this vow, I am going to tell you a story. Just listen to that attentively. Having said this, Shri Guruji started narrating the story in the following manner. In ancient times, there was a king by name Chitravarma. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiva and engaged himself always in pious activities. But he had one deficiency, that is, he was not blessed with any issue for a long time. To have an issue, the royal couple observed many religious ceremonies, vows, and performed pilgrimage of many well known sacred places. Besides, they incessantly adored Lord Shiva, their chosen deity, very devotedly. At last, they were blessed with a baby girl. As she was born with graces and excellencies, she was named as Simantini. The astrologers predicted that she would, along with her husband, rule the state for 10,000 years and become renowned worldwide. But one of the Brahmins who was present in that assembly predicted that at the age of 14 years she was destined to become a widowed woman. After hearing this heartbreaking news, the king was terribly upset. The royal couple was a worried lot. The king quite often thought about her ensuing fate and became anxious. After some time, his daughter Simantini, who so far was unaware of the ensuing calamity, overheard the parents conversing about her likely widowhood. Once the most virtuous wife of sage Yajnavalkya, Maitreyi, happened to come to the royal palace. Then Simantini prayed to revered Maitreyi to advise her the best religious vow among the rest to have a long wedded life. Then Maitreyi advised the princess to surrender to Lord Mahadev, who had conquered the death, the ruler over time, and vigorously follow the vow of Pradosh Puja on every Monday, sincerely as per instructions laid down in scriptures. Later, she also guided her in the manner of observing the vow, prescribed rituals to be followed, injunctions, and the order of the vrata. Then Maitreyi told her that if the princess were to observe the Somvar Vrat and worship Lord Shankar, by the grace of Sri Shankar, undoubtedly she was bound to overcome the fear, the calamities, the anxieties, and the bad course of events, the distress, and the sins forever. Simantini was very much impressed by the advice of Maitreyi. She honored her advice by resolving to observe the Somvar Vrat. Without further delay, she started observing the Somvar Vrat in an orderly manner with a firm determination and devotion. At the ripe age, her father Chitravarma performed her marriage with Prince Chandrangada, the son of a king known by name Indrasena, in a very grand manner. After the marriage, the Prince Chandrangada stayed at his in-law's kingdom for some time at the behest of his father-in-law. Once he felt like going for water sports for fun's sake. Accordingly, he, along with his companions, landed in a pond for water sports. While they were sporting in the middle of the water, all of a sudden the prince disappeared from the scene. His companions and expert navigators made hectic search for him, but they were left with no clues about his whereabouts. His father in law, after hearing this shocking news, became grief stricken and fell unconscious. Simantini, who heard about this tragic news, also thought of committing suicide by jumping into that pond. Simantini was greatly afflicted. Remembering Lord Shiva, she prayed to him as to why she had been abandoned by him when she had surrendered to him, and rigorously and vigorously observed the Somvar Vrat without any break. She also expressed about her fate to her preceptor Maitreyi. The sad news of disappearance of Prince was communicated to his father. The king arrived at the spot and broke down. Simantini was thinking in terms of accompanying her husband. She was told that, as per scriptural injunctions, until and unless the body was traced, she was prohibited from accompanying her husband alive, and hence she had to desist from her move. Asking Indrasena, the father of the prince, was afflicted with the pangs of separation from his son. He did not pay proper attention to his princely duties and obligation. In other words, he failed in following the religion of a king. Seizing this opportunity, his own kinsmen invaded the kingdom and put the royal family behind the bars, establishing their rule over the kingdom. This side, King Chitravarma, consoling his daughter Simantini, reminded her of the prediction of celebrated astrologers of the fact that she, along with her husband, would be leading happy princely married life for 10,000 years, and that his prediction would never go the other way. He affectionately suggested to her to wait at least for 1 year before she could take any harsh step. Simantini heeded the advice of her father and continued to observe her Somvar Vrat unfailingly, which she followed since long, and worshipped Lord Shiva with a strong determination devotedly. The serpentine women who were present near the water pond at the time when Prince Chandrangada was drowning lifted him out of the water and sprinkled ambrosia on his body and made him awake. Then they took him to King Takshaka of Patal Lok. To Prince Chandrangad, the architecture of Patal Lok resembled the city of Amravati, capital of King Indra. In Patal Lok, King Takshaka was seen seated on a brilliant and eye-catching throne. Prince Chandrangad prostrated before the king Takshaka. The king learnt everything about Chandrangada from serpentine women. However, King Takshaka had no idea about his place, race, position, status, and glory. The prince himself got introduced to King Takshaka and conveyed in an intimate dialogue to King Takshaka that his life had been gratified by meeting him. Takshaka wanted to know from him the deity he worshipped and the lineage of worship. In an answer, the prince informed that Shiva Parvati were their family deities which they have been worshipping for generations together. Takshaka suggested to the prince to stay in his world, which was a wonderland and prosperous with riches, nectar, and luxuries without any hesitation and anxiety, and enjoy the luxurious life. Then the prince informed the Takshaka king about his sorrow stricken aged parents, in laws, and newly married wife, and the miserable condition under which they might be living and managing the days. He particularly mentioned about his newly married wife, without whom he cannot survive and bear with the pangs of separation. He requested the king to be kind enough to make all needed arrangements for his union with parents immediately. Then King Takshaka advised him to constantly remember him so that he can get all his desires accomplished and overcome any hardship in the life. King Takshaka blessed him. King Takshaka presented him with the best vehicle, horse, and other valuables and sent his son to accompany the prince to his kingdom. The prince expressed his sincere gratitude and saluted Takshaka. He carried with him all the precious things offered by the king. By riding a horse and by speed of thought, the prince arrived on the bank of the river. That time Simantini was present on the banks of river with her companions as she had come there in connection with the observance of Somvar Vrat. At once it occurred in her mind that she had seen the person who was standing close to her earlier somewhere. She could not believe her own eyes when she saw a young man on a horse who looked like her husband. She was reminded of the figure of her husband. The prince also had the same feelings in his mind. He was imagining thus: "This woman looks like my spouse, but she does not have any auspicious marks of a married woman on her body. Probably she might be under the impression that her husband might have left this world. With that assumption, she might be grieving in that tragic condition. She might now be suffering from the pangs of separation from her husband and looks lustreless." He moved a little closer to her and questioned about certain things. From her companions, he came to know that she was none other than his wife herself. Then he spoke to that afflicted woman thus: "Hey, the gentlewoman, do not grieve any more. Due to the merit you have acquired by observing Somvar Vrata, you are going to meet your husband on the third day from now. But this matter should be kept secret." Thus saying, he left the place. She had mixed feelings of curiosity and suspicion about his words at a time. She could not make out what she saw was a reality or delusion. She never dreamed that her husband would meet her after 3 years since then. Something unbelievable. At times she had a feeling that by the grace of Guru and Hari, her husband might have returned. Afterwards, Chandrangada, along with the son of Takshaka, by the speed of thought, reached his capital. As per the request of Prince Chandrangada, the son of Takshaka met the enemy king who was ruling. He brought to the notice of the king that the son of dethroned king was alive and that he should give up the reins of the kingdom which he acquired through deceitful means to the genuine ruler, and that before some untoward incident could happen, he should surrender to King Indrasena, who was held captive, imprisoned. After hearing this news, the worried wrongdoers surrendered to King Indrasena and begged for his pardon. They made him the king of their kingdom through coronation ceremony. The king got the news of his son's arrival. Delighted, he was quite eager to receive him to his capital. Elaborate arrangements were made to welcome the prince. Later, the prince was taken in a grand procession to the palace by the citizens of the kingdom. The prince recalled the helping hand lent by Takshaka in the presence of whole gathering. Then King Indrasena wrote a letter to the father-in-law of his son, King Chitravarma, stating that due to the fruits of her worship of Lord Shiva, his son could return alive to the capital. King Indrasena once again performed the marriage of his son with Simantini in a very grand manner. After a lapse of some time, Prince Chandrangad occupied the throne of king and ruled the kingdom for thousands of years together with his wife happily. Shri Guruji, while addressing affectionately to that chaste woman, said, "Hey, the fortunate one, I have narrated to you the significance of observing Somvar Vrat with an appropriate example. Therefore, you too, according to my word, observe this marvelous Somvar Vrat. Your married life would be stable and you will not encounter any calamities in your life. You will be blessed with male issues and ample wealth." As per Guruji's advice, Simantini observed the Somvar Vrat devotedly and very meticulously. They possessed everything they desired by worshipping Shri Shankar. That young couple paid obeisance to Guruji and said, "O Gurudeva, just by serving your sacred feet, one can get all his desires accomplished. Benefaction of devotees is promoted. Besides, their illusion also disappears. Devotion to Guru is the highest, the unparalleled form of devotion. Guru's grace is a means for achieving everything in life. Then, what is the necessity for us to observe Somvar Vrat and other religious ceremonies? We are already aware of the importance of devotion to the lotus feet of Guru. As it is, we do not feel a need for any other religious vows, rituals." Then Shri Guruji advised them thus, "Hey, the young couple, what you have opined is correct. There is no doubt about it. Without any hesitation, you need to observe Somvar Vrat because that Vrat is my Vrat only. Whatever service you render to Lord Shiva is finally rendered in my favor only. In my advice, there is hidden a mysterious eternal principle. Without bothering about anything else, you shall carry out my advice and get elevated yourself." Thus advising, Shri Guruji convinced them about the performance of the Vrata. Later, that young couple, along with their parents, observed the Somvar Vrat in Gangapur itself and adored Lord Shankara. After seeking permission from Shri Guruji, they left Gangapur for their native place. Due to this miraculous incident, Shri Guruji's fame came to limelight in an enhanced manner. Shri Guruji's glory spread far and wide. More and more people learnt about the glory of Shri Guruji. The couple started visiting Gangapur every year for seeking the vision of Shri Guruji. Later, they were blessed with 5 sons. Their devotion towards Shri Guruji escalated, their devotion augmented. They felt gratified in their life. Shri Gurucharitra, which is in the form of celestial cow, yields desired results. Here ends the 35th chapter in the most auspicious Shri Gurucharitra. Shri Gurudev Datta, Shri Guru Dattatreya Arpanamastu.